Foundation, and I would like to thank you all for coming tonight. A couple housekeeping items. Please make sure there's no flash photography, and also please make sure your cell phones are turned off. Tonight we'll be having a performance of Chopin, of course played by Alex Marciniak. We'll have one brief intermission, and then after the program, we will have coffee and desserts out in the commons area. I thank you, and I hope you enjoy the program. I'd like to present Mr. Alex Marciniak.
Frédéric Chopin. The reason why I chose doing an all Chopin recital was that in 2010 was the bicentennial of Chopin's birth. And pianists, particularly everywhere, particularly pianists, not just musicians, were celebrating the life of this extraordinary composer. I think of all the composers out there, there isn't one composer that's more instantly likable than Chopin. His melodies, his wealth of expression, all the various moods. My grandmother, my fraternal grandmother, Alexandra, it's interesting, Alexandra married Alexander. So it should be named after your grandmother? No, Alexander and Alexandria. She only had a 6th grade education, but she loved Chopin. And in fact, I'd love to dedicate this program to her memory. She was such a inspiration to me, and particularly in my music. And she said, "Alex, someday I hope you will grow up to be a Paderewski." Any of you that are older know that Paderewski was a great Polish pianist around the 1930s and 40s who was noted particularly for his interpretation of Chopin. And the other thing that Paderewski had in common with Chopin was fighting for Chopin's independence. Chopin was so wrapped up with all the political wars that at that time Poland had with Russia. The wheel here is an example of the military polonaise. In fact, that particular piece was forbidden to be played when there was all this turmoil that was going on, because the peasants were getting a national fervor to protect their beloved Poland when they heard this piece. Chopin's life reads like a novel. He was the quintessential romantic composer. Some of you may remember some of the movies in the past depicting his life, and also his famous love affair with Aurore Dudevant, which was the inspiration of so much of his work. I remember A Song to Remember. I watched it not long ago. That was, I think, in the 40s with, I believe it was Cornel Wilde playing Chopin. And his music was all throughout. Of course, it was done in the style of the 30s. But Chopin, so beautiful, so likable. I am giving a cross-cut selection of his works. Of course, I could give 4 concerts on Chopin. So much of it is so popular and so loved. The first 8 pieces come from his 24 preludes that he wrote in all of the major and minor keys. And this came from his love and his teacher's love of Johann Sebastian Bach. That anyone who studied piano knows his well-tempered clavier, in which he wrote all preludes and fugues in all the major and minor keys. These are like visionary fragments. They're, in a gourmet meal, they're like the little appetizer you get that they call an amuse-bouche, or just a little mouthful of flavor, a mouthful of emotion and expression. Some are only a minute long. The longest 2 I'm playing, the Raindrop Prelude, and also the last one, that's about no more than 5-6 minutes. Visionary fragments, but so much emotion. The first prelude is a prelude in C major. To me, I just picked the opening of a curtain for the panorama of what's to come. If you notice in your program, there are little subtitles for every single one of these preludes that I'm playing, but they were not all original with Chopin. The only one that was original with Chopin is the Raindrop Prelude. But the first is in C major. The second one is titled Tolling Bells, and this is a very melancholy piece. Chopin was sick during much of his life. His good friend Franz Liszt, who was supposedly his good friend, made the comment, "I've never seen a man who spent his whole life dying." Whereas Chopin. He wasn't sickly as a child, but he was just very, very weak. And the other thing about Chopin, he hated performing. He hated giving concerts. He felt, at one time he said, everyone's looking at my collar. And the other thing, he was really against this bravura-style playing that was just all show-off and not much substance. So this is why Chopin is nicknamed the poet of the piano. Anyway, Tolling Bells, this was performed at his funeral, and I think you can understand why. The next, number 3, is in E major, kind of a chordal prelude with a little melody. Then we have the Polish Dancer. In fact, I think that's before the E major. The Polish Dancer is like a little minuet. I think you will recognize the theme. And then we have the famous Raindrop Prelude. I guarantee many of you have heard this before. This was composed on the island of Majorca, where he was vacationing with Aurore Dudevant, who went by the pen name of George Sand in order to get her work published. In fact, she took it one step further. She wore men's pants and cravat and top hat and smoked cigars. This is one in Chopin's love of this woman. You can really hear through all of his works. It was tempestuous. They had their highs, they had their lows. And then one day, he woke up and she was gone. Just left him lock, stock, and barrel, without any reason why. And after that, Chopin gave up on life. And he didn't live much longer. And I think the B minor etude that I'm playing in the second half will represent this. So the Raindrop Prelude, they were in the island of Majorca. It rained for like a week and a half, and Chopin was feeling ill. His relationship with Aurore was strained. And you know how it's not a storm, but just that steady rain that really soaks, it just keeps going on and on. We have this repeated G sharp that goes over and over and over again, suggesting the monotony of the rain. But with the backdrop of that ostinato, we have a beautiful melody in 2 sections. Next, we have a very tempestuous etude in G minor, where Chopin has a B under his bonnet, and it's over in a flurry. The last, the 8th prelude that I'm playing is called A Scene of Notre Dame. And you can picture yourself in the distance seeing the beautiful cathedral of Notre Dame. There's a beautiful melody that is so Chopinesque. So without any further ado, the 8 preludes from his 24 preludes for the piano by Frédéric Chopin.